So my name is Clara Klack. My maiden name is Van Beek. So I am quite involved with local history because this was all very Dutch before, and I was born in Holland. I am a restorer. I restore books and ephemera. So one of the things, or actually two of the things that I found right away was this map and another map, and they were just rolled up in a corner and were getting, water was getting on them. There was a big tear here and there was a big hole here. It was like, it looked like a bullet hole, but I doubted that somebody was shooting here. It just had a big hole. And of course it was attached by a big rod, top and bottom, because it was a pull-out map for a school. So this map is from 1855, and the cartographer was Jacob Monk, and he lived in Baltimore, and the map was printed in Baltimore. The printer was called August Hoon, and he specialized in lithographs, and he did not only print maps but also labels for goods like canned labels and things, but also cigar box labels. And when you look at those, they're very intricate and very beautifully printed. And he did also sheet music. So it was a very, hard-working, well-run company that did all that stuff for a long time, because then the Sons took over as well. There were a few different versions made of this map. This one is maybe the second one. I think there were 5 printed eventually when times changed a little bit. It is quite rare because it was a school map and so heavily used that a lot of it was just torn and people didn't think it was you could save it anymore, and they just threw it out. So first of all I took it home and I cleaned it with a very archival kind of eraser. It's like a sandbag almost that has very fine sand in it that you just sort of very gently get all the grime off. I mean, there were like spider webs in it and like things of caterpillars that were living in here. So that was all cleaned up. Then I enforced, I took the rods off, and then I enforced the edges. And then I fixed the tear on the back and the hole. And then I put like a piece of paper behind it that sort of blended in. And then there was not much I could do about, it's water. But these maps were, first of all, they were printed in lithograph. And then there was a coat of varnish put over it. And the varnish yellows after a while. And so the printing is still visible, it's just that the varnish is gone. So if you look up close, you can really still see everything that was printed there. It's just that it has a white blotch on it. So this map was made at a time of great expansion in the United States. When you look here, the East Coast is very busy. Lots of towns, lots of rivers. Of course, the Erie Canal was already here. And then that, made a huge difference in the north of shipping. All of a sudden, the East Coast became connected directly with the heartland, which then they could ship down the Hudson River to New York, to Baltimore, to all the big trading posts, whereas before it was all very much controlled by the South and by the Caribbean. The Erie Canal is 1817 to 1825, and this is 1855. So already the Erie Canal was already at a downfall. There was already, the railroads took over, and railroads are being charted, but they weren't even built there yet. They were here, but they weren't here yet. But they're already prospecting them to know that the whole country will be connected by railroad. And I remember even in Holland, they would sell bonds to finance the American railroad. And of course, it really didn't pan out as they thought it would. The Caribbean is in here. Canada is in here, and Mexico and South America. So it's like really the whole of the Americas are in here. Not all the way south. We're not talking about Peru. I mean, it stops at Venezuela. But, you know, middle America you have in Mexico. This is after the Spanish-American War, so this border is new. That wasn't there before. After the Spanish-American War, there was like a great expansion of the United States because everything changed. They had, all of a sudden, they had access to all this. This was supposed to be the gold rush, and the original map it's all colored yellow because you can see there's some different colors in the different states, and the gold rush area was gold, but that's where the white blotch is. So this was a relative peaceful period in the United States. It was just commerce that was really growing, especially on the East Coast. But over here, it's still not very developed. And there are all these Indian territories of Indian tribes that I haven't even heard of. The Cha-La-Caw and the Muskogee and the Cha-Ta. You know, these people have all been exterminated. They're not there as far as I know. Maybe there's a tiny little bit left, but this was all being wiped out. Utah looks like a huge state. There were not really any defined borders in Utah. So this map shows springs. So maybe for people who were going west, that they knew where to stop. I'm thinking about the Mormons especially, who were up north in New York, and then they went all the way across and then settled eventually in Utah, Salt Lake. So it shows springs, it shows forests, it shows swamps and deserts. You know, it's all there. And sometimes it's not exact when you look at a modern map, but it's pretty close, pretty close. Then it shows all the shipping lanes. So the boats that would go to New York, to Baltimore, to New Orleans, to the Gulf of Mexico, but also here to San Francisco and to Los Angeles. And of course, they're tall ships because that's what they had. And, you know, it's interesting to see that that's, you know, lots of commerce, lots of moving of goods already in 1855. So that's, you know, more than 150, 160 years ago. So this is a chart of all the towns that were of importance at the time, and the population, and you know, what, not so much what they were doing in those towns, but more that those were important towns in the United States. The president at the time, which I had to look up, was Franklin Pierce. I really don't know much about him, but he was president at a relatively peaceful time. But then after this came the Civil War. So then everything became a mayhem between the North and the South. And I guess maybe it had something to do with the shipping up here. The North became so wealthy and the South not so much. So, and of course, slavery. The border is Baroque, they say. It's like just the way they always made everything embellished and pretty and not just a plain map. You know, there's some art involved with it. So the frame was made by a local carpenter. His name is Tom Nershi, and he's a meticulous carpenter. He is just he makes these he has like a special routers that he makes for particular frames or any kind of wainscoting, or you know, he's just a fine carpenter. And then the person who framed it is a woman called Rachel, and she lives in Delhi, and she's the only person who does big framing. There's nobody else. They only do little artwork, but not anything big. So we had to frame it. I went to help her, and then there was another person there, so we had to have 3 people to put it together because it's so oversized. We didn't put glass in it because, of course, it's much too fragile and too heavy. So we used plexiglass. And because of COVID, it was very difficult to get the plexiglass. We had to wait for a long time to finally get plexiglass for art, because plexiglass was used for everything as a barrier. So it's done, and I think it looks great. And I think I'm so happy that we were able to do it with the help of some donations. And yeah, it's a great addition to the schoolhouse.